In today's video, we will meet two sisters who enlightened one of the world's greatest empires. Let us learn more about the Khmer queens, Jayarajadevi and Indradevi. Mabuhay o in Kapampangan, luwid kayo. And to our Khmer viewers, suwasaday. Welcome to my channel. It is me, Kirby Araullo, your friendly Pinoy historian. And if you are new to my channel, in this channel, I make videos about our people's diverse cultures, colorful histories, and everything in between. So if you like any of those things, don't forget to like, share this video, comment down below, and please subscribe. Now before we begin today's topic, here are some few reminders. Making videos like this takes a lot of time, research, and resources. So, if you want to support my channel and my research, please consider being my patron on Patreon or a member of my channel here on YouTube. Or you can also get copies of any of my books, coloring books, and ebooks. So check them out on my website in the links down below. In fact, to expand your knowledge about today's topic, check out my new book and coloring book about the fierce women of Southeast Asia, where you can learn more and meet over 36 inspiring women from the histories and the oral traditions of our ancestors. So don't miss out and order your copies today. And I also would like to apologize in advance if there's anything that I mispronounce in this video. But anyways, as I've mentioned in previous videos, it is not surprising to see strong Southeast Asian women at the forefront of basically everything. It was very different than the status of women in many Western and Eastern societies. In comparison, women in ancient and early Southeast Asia, they enjoyed more freedom. They had more influence than their European or even their East Asian counterparts. And today, we will make two of my favorite examples of the fierce and empowering women, inspiring women in the history of Southeast Asia. So, without further ado, let's begin! Between the 11th and the 13th centuries, while Europe itself was only beginning to emerge slowly out of the early medieval period, also known as the Dark Ages, the Khmer Empire of Cambodia was a flourishing kingdom in Southeast Asia. Eventually, it expanded to control much of the region known to early Europeans as Indochina. And this vast territory includes the present-day countries of Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, and parts of northern Thailand. At its height, the capital of the empire, the city of Angkor, had expanded to as many as 1 million people, making it the largest city in the world at the time, and the thriving heart of a Buddhist empire. So in the fabled Khmer Empire of Angkor, there are two sisters from the 1100s who set the standards for a progressive society, a society that was far advanced than their European counterparts. And together, these two sisters, along with their husband the king, built countless temples, hospitals, and schools. They made sure that education was accessible to all, regardless of gender. They embarked on a progressive social programs such as the universal right to education, property ownership, political power, and public health care. Long before these became accessible to the common people of places like Europe, these two queens made sure that these were all accessible to their beloved people, regardless of their gender or social status. It was truly a period of enlightenment, a golden age for the ancient Khmer Empire. And these two sisters and benevolent queens were none other than Jayarajadevi and Indradevi, the beloved first and second wives of the famous Khmer king Jayavarman VII. It is also worth noting that according to the oral traditions and local history, it is believed that the very first monarch of the Khmer people was also a fierce queen, the legendary Queen Soma, who ruled what is now Cambodia sometime around the year 68, more than 1,000 years before Jayarajadevi, Indradevi, and Jayavarman VII were even born. But before we learn more about our fierce queens, let us first take a quick look at the wonders of the magnificent Angkor Wat. Angkor Wat is perhaps one of the most iconic ancient structures found in Southeast Asia, if not in the entire world. It is also the world's largest religious monument with an area of around 500 acres, or about 200 hectares. So the word Angkor literally means city or capital city, while the word Wat means temple grounds. So therefore, Angkor Wat literally means temple city. and this sacred capital city is located in the northern region of what is now the country of Cambodia. The construction of Angkor Wat began under the Khmer king Jayavarman II sometime around the early 12th century or the 1100s, and it was completed by Jayavarman VII, who reigned in the late 12th century to the early 13th century, and it was built in what is now known as the high classical style of Khmer architecture, with strong influence from the Hindu-Buddhist traditions of India and Southeast Asia. In fact, Angkor Wat was designed to represent Mount Meru. So for those who may not know, Mount Meru is a sacred mountain with its iconic 5 peaks. Mount Meru is believed to be the center of all the physical, metaphysical, and spiritual universe in the Hindu-Buddhist cosmology. It is also believed to be the sacred home of the Devas, or the deities in the Hindu mythology. And so Angkor Wat started off as a Hindu temple complex, but many are also unaware that sometime in the 13th century, Angkor Wat was transformed from being a Hindu temple into a Theravada Buddhist temple. And this use as a sacred site in the Theravada Buddhism actually continued into the modern day. In fact, contrary to the common belief, especially for Westerners and tourists, Angkor Wat was never abandoned. It was never a lost city. Now, Angkor Wat may be the largest temple complex in the world, but it is actually not the only one, nor is it the oldest temple complex in the ancient Khmer capital of Angkor. In fact, unknown to many, the region known as Angkor, the capital city of Angkor, is actually home to over 1,000 temples, flourishing from the 9th to the 15th centuries. And like I said earlier, Angkor was a mega city that at one point became home to around 1 million people. And again, it was the world's largest urbanized center of its time. In other words, it was perhaps the biggest city in history before the Industrial Revolution of the 1800s. And Angkor Wat is not only about beautiful temples. Angkor was also an ancient engineering marvel with a very intricate and complex water management system, ancient infrastructure that continues to amaze even modern-day engineers, which is why it is no surprise that Angkor is one of the most important archaeological sites in all of Southeast Asia, if not the entire world. And again, it was completed under the reign of the great king Jayavarman VII, who ruled the Khmer Empire between 1181 to 1218. He is typically believed to have been the most powerful and accomplished ruler of the empire, reigning over Angkor and the Khmer Empire at its peak. For instance, in the early part of his reign, he re-established the predominance of Khmer power in the region after decades of bloody invasions by the neighboring kingdoms of Champa and Dai Viet to the east, or in what is now Vietnam. He also embarked on a massive building program by sponsoring the construction of some of Angkor's most iconic sites, including of course the Great Angkor Wat. But it is now widely believed that the power behind the throne during his reign, his golden age, was actually none other than his 2 queens, Jayarajadevi and her successor Indradevi. This is all the more remarkable as the 2 queens were also sisters. So who exactly are these 2 sisters? How exactly did they make an impact into the empire, the ancient Khmer Empire? How did they change the lives? How did they influence the lives of about 1 million people who call the ancient city of Angkor their home? Let's learn more. Jayarajadevi and Indradevi were the daughters of Kshatriyas, a caste of the Khmer royal lineage. They were descended from some of the most esteemed early rulers of the Khmer Empire, and they were raised accordingly in the bustling city of Angkor in the mid-12th century. Both of them developed an especially pious Buddhism, a hardly unusual trait amongst Khmer nobility at a time, when the great temple complex of Angkor Wat was being developed in the city, a site which eventually grew to become 3 times the size of the Vatican in Rome, and stands as one of the most impressive monumental sites in the world today. Curiously, it was Jayarajadevi, the younger of the 2 sisters, who first married the man who would one day become ruler of the Khmer Empire, as Jayavarman VII in 1181. However, when she died just a few years later, her elder sister Indradevi married the king and succeeded her sister as queen of the Khmer Empire. Both sisters played a prominent role in religious affairs at Angkor and throughout the wider empire during their respective reigns. Indradevi was particularly significant in this respect, and she was the one who initiated her sister into the peace and tranquility of the teachings of the Buddha, away from the fire of torment, as a near-contemporary account tells us. And this must surely suggest that the sisters were originally Theravada Buddhists, the more traditional form of Buddhism. As such, it seems that Indradevi had converted early on in her life to Mahayana Buddhism, a branch of Buddhism which had emerged that accepted new scriptures and teachings derived from the Mahayana Sutras. She then influenced her sister to become a Mahayana Buddhist as well. When Jayarajadevi converted, she was inspired to become a Mahayana Buddhist teacher herself, and this was in line with the more activist vision of Mahayana Buddhists at the time. And accordingly, she set up a school for orphan girls during her time as queen. And here she provided them with a decent education and upbringing, and she also trained them to act out scenes from the compendium of popular accounts of the Buddha known as the Jataka. Jayarajadevi was also praised for her charity and having granted away much of her wealth to the poor people of Angkor and the surrounding regions. She may have also inspired Jayavarman VII to begin a vast program of building hospitals, which resulted in the emergence of over 100 new medical facilities throughout the Khmer Empire. Sadly, Jayarajadevi died early on in Jayavarman VII's reign, after which her sister Indradevi took on the reins. She married the king after her sister's death and became queen herself. And Indradevi continued her sister's legacy, her sister's social programs, such as the universal right to education, the right to property ownership, the right to political power, and the right to public health care. She also took over as the head of 3 colleges, of Nagendratunge, Tilakotare, and Narendrasrama, institutions of higher learning where Buddhist doctrine and sciences were taught. Narendrasrama in particular seems to have been a school for the education of the Khmer women at the time, most likely those of royal blood or noble birth. As a result of the teaching here, Cambodian women gained greater esteem as merchants in the entire Khmer Empire during the late 12th century and the early 13th century. It was a development which was commented upon by Chinese visitors in the region. However, beyond this work in promoting the education of women in the Khmer Empire, Jayarajadevi and Indradevi are primarily remembered for their efforts as the beloved patrons of religious buildings throughout Angkor, and inspiring Jayavarman VII to undertake the same. One of these was Ta Prohm, a major temple at Siem Reap, which was constructed as a Mahayana Buddhist monastery and university. In fact, Ta Prohm still stands almost entirely intact today. At the capital, the king and his 2 queens patronized or sponsored the building of a vast new city center called Angkor Thom, meaning the Grand Angkor. And this was adorned with what must have been the most impressive accomplishments of the reign and a testament to the religious piety of Jayavarman VII and his beloved 2 queens, Jayarajadevi and Indradevi. It was known as the Bayon, a richly decorated Buddhist temple which was established as the state temple of Mahayana Buddhism within the Khmer Empire. Facades throughout the Bayon contain elaborate bas-reliefs showing scenes from the Khmer and Buddhist mythology. It is adorned with many towers jutting out from several terraces, and these are notably adorned with serene and smiling faces representative of the Buddha. Many of these scenes throughout the temple depict the Buddha along with the Lord Avalokiteshvara and the goddess Prajnaparamita, and thus there are clear signs here and in the other buildings the 3 of them erected across the Khmer Empire of their utmost respect for the female and male divinity. Now, before I continue, I just want to acknowledge that I am not Cambodian, but I do have deep appreciation of the Khmer culture, deep appreciation of the Khmer history, and of course, mad respect to the Khmer people. So to all our Khmer friends out there, to all our Khmer viewers out there, if there's something that I miss, something that I said wrong, or something that you want to add from your own knowledge of your own culture and heritage and history, please let us know in the comments down below. And like I always say in this channel, let us all learn from one another. So please share your knowledge in the comments down below. Let us all learn from one another. Wait, I just said that. But anyways, back to our topic. It is, in many ways, unfortunate that we do not have more available resources or materials with which to deepen our understanding of the lives of Queen Jayarajadevi and Queen Indradevi. However, there is little doubt that they were significant figures during the long 4-decade reign of their husband, King Jayavarman VII. There is no doubt that they profoundly influenced the religious and the social life of the Khmer Empire, ushering in its golden age in the late 12th and early 13th centuries, making their empire one of the world's most advanced societies of the era. And as I've mentioned in my previous videos, since the time of the legendary Khmer Queen Soma in the year 68, up to the advent of colonialism in the 1600s and the 1700s, Southeast Asia remains one of the regions in the world where female rule was the strongest in pre-modern times. In fact, only a few places at specific times can equal this record. And no, it is not Europe, but places like Madagascar and East Timor in the 19th century, where female rule, just like in many parts of Southeast Asia, became the norm. And thus, Southeast Asia in the ancient, pre-colonial, and early modern period represents a time and a place when female rule flourished astonishingly. And again, like I mentioned before, taken as a whole, the status of women in pre-colonial Southeast Asian societies was in many ways far better than that of women in Europe or East Asia. Southeast Asian women were not just confined to domestic and religious affairs. Many of them were the heads of the family and key decision makers in society, just like Jayarajadevi and Indradevi. Many of them were fierce warriors in the battlefield, and many of them were also great leaders, rightfully revered and beloved by their people. Now don't get me wrong, the societies of our Southeast Asian ancestors were not perfect by all means, but we can certainly learn a lot from them. They were not exotic savages or backward societies as depicted by centuries of colonialism and imperialism. Now, these amazing sisters, Jayarajadevi and Indradevi, are just two of my favorite examples of empowering Southeast Asian women in history. So to see more examples and learn more about the history of women in Southeast Asia, check out my book and coloring book on the fierce women of Southeast Asia. And I also created an entire YouTube playlist of my videos dedicated to these awe-inspiring women. So to meet more of them, stay tuned for more videos like this. And that is it for me today, so let me know what you think about today's topic in the comments down below. And of course, if you like this video and learned a thing or two, don't forget to like this video, share my videos, and comment down below, and please don't forget to subscribe. Help me grow my channel so more people can learn more about our about our people's colorful interwoven history, culture, and everything in between. But of course, before we go, today's shoutout goes to Adi from Cambodia, Amien from Malaysia, Andespar from Indonesia, and Divine from the Philippines. And a very special shoutout to my dear Khmer friend David and his beautiful and lovely children Avery and Emmett. And actually, a fun fact, it was actually David who first taught me how to really use Final Cut back in high school. So, without David's patience teaching me Final Cut back in high school after hours, then I don't think I would have a channel like this today. So, maraming salamat. Thank you, David. And of course, special thanks and special shout out to my dear patron, Laura. This video will not be possible without the love and the support of all my patrons through the years. Maraming salamat po. So for those who want to help me make more videos like this, show your support and please be my patron or be a member of my YouTube channel, or you can also get copies of any of my books or coloring books or any of the merch linked down below. And again, maraming salamat po. Agyamanak terima kasih magsukol. Daghang salamat, dakalpong salamat, or in Kamay, or Kunchram. See you next time, or in Tagalog, kita-kits, and in Kapampangan, Mikitix, and in Kamay, Lihay.